Good morning. I'm truly honored today to share reflections with all of you regarding our beloved Mary Ellen. It's my intention this morning to keep this in the true spirit of a celebration because that's what Mary Ellen wanted. And if there was ever someone to celebrate, wasn't it Mary Ellen? When I started thinking about what I would say today and reflecting on the past 40 plus years that I've known Mary Ellen, I immediately thought about her smile, her infectious laugh, her sparkling blue eyes, her big hugs and a kiss when you would see her after a while. And I'll admit it, when she was hugging you, I always smelled way too much flowery perfume. I'll always remember walking into the house and seeing her come out into the kitchen, and she'd say, "Hiya, Johns, how you doing? You look great. I haven't seen you in so long, honey. How are you?" And you just knew she meant it. She always made me feel so welcome, as if I was one of her own children. I'll also fondly remember sitting at the kitchen counter, and you'd be deep in conversation. Really, you'd just be gossiping. But you'd be eating a delicious meal that Karen probably made and Mary Ellen made the side dishes for. And you'd be talking about something, and Mary Ellen, you would just notice all of a sudden she was like staring at you, just like this kind of odd stare. And you'd be mid-sentence, and she'd just say, "That's such a beautiful sweater." "Oh, honey, I love your necklace. Did you do something different to your hair?" Again, totally mid-sentence. And, she'd say something complimentary to you. And it was like she was really treasuring what she was looking at, and she was treasuring you. And you knew she was right there in the moment with you, just taking it all in. But I suspect she made everybody feel that way. It wasn't just me, even though I might have thought so at the time. Whether you were family, friends, or her customers at the post office window. As her grandson Duncan wrote in her obituary, Mary Ellen never met a room that she couldn't light up with her sparkling blue eyes and her extraordinary, engaging soul. Now, they say that people will not remember exactly what you said or exactly what you did, but people will always remember how you made them feel. And I think that is apropos for Mary Ellen. While we may not always remember what Mary Ellen said to us, especially with the passing of time, won't we always all remember how Mary Ellen made us feel? Whether you called her Mary Ellen, Mare, Meema, Mrs. Gebauer, wife, grandmother, mother, sister, aunt, friend, or some other term of endearment, I suspect we'll all remember how she made us feel with that warm-hearted nature and her big laugh and her sense of humor. And to be able to touch so many people in a universal way shows that she really did live her life in true line with her true essence, and what a special and unique person she was to all of us. So Mary Ellen was a Connecticut Yankee through and through. She grew up in West Haven with her brothers, Bern and Bobby. She had a cat named Teddy, who would apparently meet her at the bus stop after school. And she met her, it's true, and she met her best friend Patsy in kindergarten, and they remained lifelong friends. You can't celebrate Mary Ellen's life without celebrating and recognizing her beloved family, starting with Charlie. They met circa 1957 in a history class when they were about 16 years old, and they were juniors at West Haven High, the class in 1959. Now, can't you just imagine how they were together back then? Charlie so tall and handsome at 6'3", and Mary Ellen, the petite, cute cheerleader, only 5 feet tall. And she would call him Chaz, and he called her Peanut. And the pictures on the memory board, hopefully if you haven't seen them already, you'll take time to see them today. They document what became a 53-year marriage. After high school, Charlie went to Oklahoma State University, and during Christmas break in his junior year, they eloped to Rye, New York. And then Mary Ellen went with Charlie to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Now, being a Connecticut Yankee, could she have gone anywhere more different than Connecticut? So my understanding is Mary Ellen Oklahoma really wasn't her cup of tea. However, that's where Paul was born in 1962. And when Paul was about 7 months old, they moved back to Connecticut. And it was 12 months and 12 days after Paul was born, Karen was born. And Mary Ellen liked having both a boy and a girl. And she would talk about the stark contrast about raising a daughter and raising a son. Her greatest joy in life was being a mother. And she took pride in raising Paul and Karen to be close to one another. I think many of us would agree that one of Mary Ellen's greatest accomplishments is how she raised Karen and Paul to be both kind-hearted souls, like their mother and their father. Mary Ellen passed on many life lessons to her children, including what she called the best advice she ever got, and that was from her mother, Mimi, who, by the way, if you didn't know her, she had the same warm-hearted nature and smile as Mary Ellen did. But that advice was pretty simple. When in doubt, don't. So I can only imagine how many times over the years that sage advice applied. And Mary Ellen felt fortunate. She didn't have to play favorites. She had one son, she had one daughter, and then she had one grandson, Duncan, and one granddaughter, Tessa. And she loved to talk about Duncan and Tessa and whatever they were into at the time, and of course she always had their latest pictures. Author Toni Morrison poses a poignant question when she often asks, when your child walks into the room, do your eyes light up and does your face light up? You see, she believed that your eyes and face speak what is in your heart. And if that is true, Duncan and Tessa know for sure that Mary Ellen's heart was full of love, because that twinkle in her eye was never, ever more evident than when her grandchildren were in the room. I remember back in 1981 when Mary Ellen applied for a position at the Madison Post Office. Now, could there have been a more perfect place in this town for Mary Ellen to work? You know, she had lived in Madison for about 20 years at that point, and she knew just about everybody in town, but this sealed the deal. She's now at the post office, and she literally does know everyone in town, and trust me, she knows all the mail that you got. So she didn't really tell a lot of postal secrets, but there'd be times, again, sitting around that kitchen counter, and you'd say somebody's name, she'd go, oh yeah, they live over on Cops Road. God, they get so much junk mail. So she knew a lot of secrets. Whether she was greeting you at the post office window or delivering your mail, of course, she always did so with a smile. And sometimes when she delivered the mail, you may know Mary Ellen would also bring a meal or a cup of coffee to an elderly person who was unable to leave their home. And that generous spirit lightened many people's days. Mary Ellen became known as the super sleuth of wayward letters. If you've read the article that was in the paper in the early 2000s, it talks about her vast knowledge of the names and addresses of the town's more than 16,000 residents at the time meant she could take a 2-foot pile of seemingly undeliverable mail and almost every single piece she could get. And she'd say, oh, I know them. They got divorced. No, that's her maiden name. And she would get it to them, and she would know everything. And, of course, you can't forget the letters to Santa. For many years, Mary Ellen personally replied to more than 800 children who sent their wish list to Santa. She had lovely, beautiful penmanship, and she would answer questions like, what is Santa's favorite cookie, to what does Santa do in the off time? I can only imagine what she said. But in true Mary Ellen fashion, she even devised her own North Pole postmark, and she would post it on that, and then she would send the original letter back in a different envelope to the parents so that they would know what their kids had asked for, because she probably promised that they were going to get it. Now, most of you probably know that Mary Ellen, she just loved sparkly, pretty things. She loved whites and peaches and pastels and frilly things that matched. And as her niece Kim said in a remembrance, Mary Ellen invented shabby chic, but long before it became popularized. Year after year, Mary Ellen, if you went to the Gebauer's house, you saw she had the most beautiful Christmas tree. And it always had all white lights. Couldn't have colored lights on Mary Ellen's tree. And there were beautiful and cherished ornaments. And like her tree, her packages were always exquisitely wrapped with loving care. And she was known to have more than a few Christmas sweaters as well. And my mother and I spent many Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners with Mary Ellen and the Gebauers, and I always looked forward to hanging out with Mary during those times. It's no secret Mary Ellen loved to have fun, always the life of the party. She liked to dance, she loved Frank Sinatra, as well as radio personality Don Imus. Yeah. That's probably one part where we disagreed, but just saying. And many of you may know that when Don Imus was in town at a book signing, Mary Ellen wanted to get in, and there was a long line, and she thought in advance, so the day before, she actually sent a FedEx or a package, an overnight package, that just had to be delivered by herself because she made it signature required, so she got in. All that postal experience came in handy. And Mary Ellen often wore her trademark houndstooth checked hat at work and around town. She had a convertible for about 15 years. If you lived in town, you saw her, including a 1952 replica MG and a Baron. And many of us remember her tootling around town with Muffin, her beloved dog, in the front seat. And how she loved that dog and that car. After her retirement, Mary Ellen spent time cultivating the beautiful gardens at her home, and she treasured the ducks on the pond in the backyard, and even named two, Mo and Joe, and she would go out and feed them every day. And I believe some of these flowers are from her garden, right, Karen? Yeah, some of the flowers here are from her garden. Now, here we go. This is where we might divide the town of Madison. But of course, we can't remember Mary Ellen without talking about politics. While she loved living in Madison and participating in all that it had to offer, the beaches, the parades, and all, in a mostly Republican town, she was a staunch Democrat who often spoke her mind about both local and national politicians. And she always had an interesting way of expressing her opinion, and she certainly was opinionated, wasn't she? She was also mindful that she was in the minority in this town, and the last time she saw my own mother was earlier this year at Meema Memorial, and when my mother walked in, she said, "Oh, good, another Democrat's here." But sadly, Mary Ellen was dealt a bad deal regarding her health. As you likely know, she faced many years of excruciating and debilitating back pain, including two serious surgeries and wearing a vibrating back brace that's called Hello Kitty. She had that for over a year, and she always tried to maintain a positive attitude even while going through this. What you might not know is that she had an undiagnosed kidney stone for at least 4 years, which was only discovered about 2.5 years ago. And as a result of the prolonged situation, her kidneys were weak, and an issue with her medication ultimately shut down her heart. And that episode a couple of years ago caused lack of oxygen to her brain, which ultimately resulted in the vascular dementia. And we hope that Mary Ellen's legacy will be that people with chronic pain will ensure that every possible thing is ruled out, and you're persistent in identifying the source of the pain. And also that people will have a better understanding of this type of sudden onset dementia and how it can affect anyone and their family at any time. Now, Mary Ellen recognized her dementia and even made light of it while she was touching the lives of those around her. It's certainly no surprise that while she was in hospice, she made friends with the hospice workers, those wonderful and attentive and loving staff. And can't you just envision, Karen told me this story one night on the phone, and I can just see Mary Ellen in her bed, and she tells the nurse, "Honey, you can tell me your deepest, darkest secrets." No, really, patting her on the hand. You can tell me. Because in 5 minutes, I won't remember anything you said. Mary Ellen just laughing hysterically at herself all the while. And even when she didn't realize that what she was saying was the dementia talking, that true essence of a fun-loving person was still there. Because she told Karen while in hospice, "I love this place. I want to work here." And Karen said, "Well, what are you going to do here, Mom?" And she said, "I'm going to cook and I'm going to clean." And Mary Ellen would have loved this gathering today here at Bower Farm, one of her favorite places so close to her home. I remember coming here with Karen and my mother a few years ago for an impromptu watching the 4th of July fireworks. We figured out we could actually see them, and we were up front, and how we oohed and awed right here. And she just loved being here. And she would love the celebration today to be followed by everyone to get together, gathered at her home. It's a Madison reunion of sorts, along with her Gebauer and Stoddard families, her best friend Patsy. So many cherished friends, neighbors, former coworkers, all together on a beautiful Madison end of summer day. I can hear her giggling right now, saying, "Hey, Johns, I pulled a pretty good crowd, didn't I?" Yeah, Mary, you did. And the one thing I know for sure is that Mary Ellen's spirit is here with us today, and we will always remember how she made us feel, and she'll remain in our hearts forevermore.
Well, thanks, Johns. I don't know how I'm going to top that, but...
You're her son, that's all.
Yeah, well, this is a job for the son right now, so I'm going to try my best. When we talked about this memorial service, I immediately said I have to talk. And I've been looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to talk about my mom, and I just hope I keep it together. If I don't, I don't. That's fine. Well, as Johnson said, most of you know my mom's health wasn't great over the last few years, and she battled and she fought, and we all did what we could, of course. And my wife Olga and I stopping over, my nephew Duncan, who I call my little brother, and my sister Karen was amazing. She did all the shopping and the cooking and all the doctor's appointments, and somehow kept all the medication straight. And